He's a fighter.
Here we go!
I'm not a queen or a monster. I'm the goddess of death. What were you the god of again?
So I just saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Oh, wait a minute. I meant Thor Ragnarok. I apologize. It's easy to confuse the two. If you haven't heard yet, Thor Ragnarok is absolutely killing it in reviews. Getting great reviews everywhere. And I have to agree. It's completely outstanding. Nothing about this movie should have worked for a Thor story, but somehow it does. So let's jump into it. As usual, I don't shy away from spoilers. There might be some light story spoilers in this review, nothing too major though. We're going to break this review down into 4 sections. Story, what I liked, what I didn't like, and since I'm a huge comic book nerd, we are going to make some comic book comparisons. Part 1, Story Summary. The general story of Thor Ragnarok is about the prophecy of Ragnarok, the apocalypse of the Norse gods, and the end of Asgard as they know it. At the end of Thor the Dark World, we saw Loki sitting in place of Odin on the throne of Asgard, as Loki had banished Odin down to Earth. By doing this, he cut off Odin from his source of power, ensuring his death would come sooner than expected. In the meantime, Thor's been flying around the galaxy trying to find more information on the Infinity Stones, and he's come up with nothing, ending up in the clutches of the fire demon Surtur, one of his classic major villains, who wants to bring about the end of Asgard. So Thor beats him down, confident that he stopped the apocalypse, and we're also introduced to the evil Hela, Odin's firstborn daughter and secret older sister to Thor, who also happens to be the goddess of death. She's extremely powerful, bloodthirsty, and obsessed with becoming ruler of Asgard. And if she can't be the ruler, she'll annihilate it with an army of dead Asgardians and a giant wolf. I'm not kidding, she walks around with a giant wolf. The Fenris wolf, adapted from Norse mythology and brought to life from the Marvel Comics for the first time on screen. Thor and Loki end up traveling to Earth where Hela finds them, then accidentally warp her to Asgard while they both fall out of the space bridge and become stranded on the planet Sakaar, a planet ruled by the Grand Master, where the main source of entertainment is gladiator battles. So it's Thor's job to find a way back home and stop Hela's evil plot. Part 2. What I liked. There are so many things about this movie that I like that I know I'm going to forget to talk about something. Let's start with the tone of the movie. It's so wildly different from the other 2 Thor movies. Some might find that as a negative thing. I don't. I love that you can watch each Thor movie and get a completely different experience. You know, the first one was this fish out of water story with Thor landing on Earth and not understanding anything because it's a planet he's not from. The second movie attempted to have a more epic, kind of Lord of the Rings style feel, where we spend a lot more time on Asgard. But Ragnarok takes heavy inspiration from Guardians of the Galaxy. It's most definitely a cosmic adventure. And like many trilogies, it harkens back to the first one, putting Thor in another fish-out-of-water situation, stuck on a foreign planet he doesn't know. But this time the audience is right there with him, because Sakaar is also an unfamiliar world to us. And you really have to be a comic book nerd to appreciate this next thing, but the entire planet of Sakaar is a huge love letter to Jack Kirby. Stan Lee tends to get most of the credit for building the Marvel Universe, but Jack Kirby was just as responsible for these characters. He worked together with Stan Lee drawing all the stories that Stan Lee came up with. That old classic art style you find everywhere in the early days of comics, that was Jack Kirby. Everything was made out of these bright, contrasting colors, with weird shapes, trippy designs. Jack Kirby's art style is instantly recognizable on a comic book page. And the Jack Kirby inspiration for Planet Sakaar couldn't be any clearer. The uniforms the guards are wearing, the building architecture, it's got Jack Kirby written all over it. This movie honors the look and feel of his art style tremendously, and as a lifelong comic book reader, it genuinely made me happy. Instead of trying to make this a darker, more depressing movie like so many comic book movies try doing today, sometimes unnecessarily, Thor Ragnarok reminds you that this is a superhero adventure, and it's a fun ride from beginning to end, never slowing down or becoming boring. But at the same time, it does have a larger story of a man trying to get home before something terrible happens. So it does have this darker element with some more serious moments, and even some permanent and interesting repercussions for Thor and the entire MCU that I'm excited to see play out in the grand scheme of things. One of the best aspects about the movie was the humor. When it was used properly, there was some genuinely hilarious moments that had me dying of laughter.
Hey, let's do Get Help.
What?
Get Help.
No.
Come on, you love it.
I hate it.
It's great. It works every time.
It's humiliating.
Do you have a better plan?
No.
We're doing it.
We are not doing Get Help.
Get help! Please! My brother's dying! Get help! Help him!
Oh, classic.
Still hate it? It's humiliating.
No, not for me, it's not.
Chris Hemsworth as Thor was responsible for many of these, and as an actor, he could pull off the stupidest things that should never be funny, but somehow he makes them funny. And honestly, looking back at that awful, terrible, atrocious, garbage movie Ghostbusters from last year, he was the only good thing about that entire movie. There's this part in Thor when he's telling a story about when him and Loki were kids, and Loki turned into a snake because he knew that Thor loves snakes. So when Thor grabbed the snake, it turned back into Loki, and then Loki tried stabbing him. It's such a stupid story that you can't help but just laugh. The entire theater was in an uproar while he's telling it. And Korg, the giant rock monster who's forced to fight in the gladiator battles. In the movie, the director plays his voice, and it's horribly miscast. But that was the whole point of the character. He's a creature made of rocks, so you expect his voice to be this deep, gravelly voice, and it comes out as this.
The hammer rode you on your back.
No. I used to spin it really fast, and it would pull me off the...
Oh my God! The hammer pulled you off.
The ground. It would pull me off the ground up into the air, and I would fly. Every time I threw it would always come back to me.
Sounds like you had a pretty special and intimate relationship with this hammer, and that losing it was almost comparable to losing a loved one.
And Hulk and Thor together after their fight, which was epic as hell, by the way. They're just chilling in Hulk's apartment, and the way they banter together, it's just these two meatheads calling each other stupid over and over, and constantly arguing over who's stronger. They end up feeling like two dysfunctional roommates.
We're the same, you and I. Just a couple of hot-headed fools.
Yeah, same. Hulk like fire, Thor like water.
Oh, kind of both like fire.
But Hulk like raging fire, Thor like smoldering fire.
And Thor Ragnarok was just as much Hulk's story as it was Thor's. Hulk landed on planet Sakaar after flying the Quinjet into space in Age of Ultron, and he's literally been the Hulk for 2 years, I think it was. So when he becomes Bruce Banner again, he has no idea where the hell he is, and he starts panicking. The last thing he remembers is before they fought Ultron, and Thor is doing his best to keep Bruce Banner's emotions under control. The character relationships are the strongest aspect of the movie. I also really enjoyed Valkyrie. She's this badass Asgardian warrior who has a history with Hela and is hesitant to go back to Asgard. Jeff Goldblum as the Grand Master was absolute gold. He's the flamboyant, stylish leader of Sakaar, and his acting is just Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum. Need I say more?
In any case, you know this, you call yourself Lord of Thunder.
God of Thunder.
I've never met this man in my life.
He's my brother.
Adopted.
Is he any kind of a fighter?
You take this thing out of my neck and I'll show you.
No, listen to that. He's threatening me. Hey, Sparkles, here's the deal. If you want to get back to Asgard.
Asgard!
Doctor Strange pops up in an awesome cameo because he's now kind of like Earth's watchdog. So when Thor and Loki come back, he's just like, hey, your dad's looking for you. Please do what you need to do and then kindly leave and take Loki with you. Heimdall is helping the people of Asgard hide from Hela and her forces, and he's this guardian figure protecting them and plays the biggest role he's had in any of the 3 Thor movies versus just standing around and opening portals all day. Loki is still the same every once in a while backstabbing character, but this time around he's forced to team up with Thor throughout the movie, and they do an amazing job making these two feel like siblings that bicker and argue, and you do get to see a side of Loki that's not pure evil. One of the greatest things about this movie is the soundtrack. It's easily one of the best and most memorable soundtracks in any Marvel movie that sounds like it was something right out of the 80s. If you've been following this channel for a little while, you probably know me pretty well right now. And you know that I love retro, for lack of a better word. I grew up with retro things, and it's all coming back in today's world, thanks to the revival of retro video games and shows like Stranger Things. So the soundtrack was right up my alley and well worth the price of admission alone. Part 3, what I didn't like. I don't believe in perfect movies. As great as a movie is, I can usually find something about it that I didn't like or that could have been handled better. And yes, those do exist within Thor Ragnarok. And they're pretty common to what I feel in most Marvel movies, actually. While I praise the humor, it didn't all feel natural. Some of the funny moments, although it was just a few of them, did feel a bit forced. There's one moment at the end, actually, where something pretty tragic happens. And they cut to one character in particular who makes a funny quip. It just felt completely out of place, and it kind of ruined what should have been a very emotionally heavy moment. I'm not one to complain about humor in Marvel movies like some people tend to really focus on. A lot of people that watch Marvel movies say it's all jokes, but, I mean, did you fall asleep through the rest of the movie? I agree that there were some jokes in the movie that were definitely out of place and we could have done without. It was never too over the top, but sometimes it just didn't need to be there, and they would just kind of throw in a humorous quip. And the villains. Hela looked awesome. The acting was fine, and she had some really cool scenes. But overall, she seemed a bit one-dimensional. She's one of those villains where her story is resolved by the end of the movie, and you're never going to see her again. Kind of like Ronan from Guardians of the Galaxy. For the MCU's first major female villain, I would have loved to see her play a bigger role in the future of the overall Marvel Universe. And her motivation is really nothing more than, I want revenge and I want to rule everything. And there's also Scourge, the Executioner. Karl Urban is a talented actor, and he didn't really get much to do in this movie other than be a henchman. He's not even really evil. He's just that typical character where the bad guy pops up, kills people in front of you, then asks if you need a job, and he accepts it to become her henchman. This has been done so many times. Then he has the predictable plot point where he changes his mind at the end of the movie and becomes good again. So through the whole thing, he just follows Hela around listening to orders and doesn't really do much at all. So Thor Ragnarok has the typical Marvel movie flaws, while telling an outstanding and truly entertaining story. Part 4, the comics. Thor Ragnarok is a combination of several comic book storylines, and it differs pretty significantly from them, but at the same time it still respects the source material. Take the Infinity Gauntlet story, although minor in this particular movie, Planet Hulk, and the Thor Ragnarok story arc, and you get this movie. The Planet Hulk storyline is very different, but the main idea is there. Hulk on a foreign planet being forced into gladiator battles. In the comics, much more than that happened though. A major group of superheroes got together, decided the Hulk was too dangerous to be left on Earth, and then they blast him into space. Then he lands on Sakaar, a planet that's the opposite of a technologically advanced civilization. And after a bunch of different events, he's got a family there, planet gets destroyed, then he returns to Earth for revenge in World War Hulk. So the movie only touched on the Planet Hulk storyline, but it was the most entertaining aspect of that storyline anyways. Also in the comics, he ended up fighting the Silver Surfer instead of Thor. But in the animated movie Planet Hulk, he fought Beta Ray Bill, who's extremely similar to Thor. And the Thor Ragnarok storyline is a little different too. In the comics, there's been several Ragnaroks. The Asgardian gods die out, and they're eventually reborn over and over in an endless cycle. Eventually, Asgard is destroyed and Thor rebuilds Asgard on Earth, as several gods slowly start popping up within human beings. The events in the movie, again, are a bit different, but share the same ideas, especially when it comes to the future of the Asgardian race. And several scenes are directly pulled from panels within the comics, which is always appreciated. Scourge talks about these machine guns he found on Earth in Texas, and he's excited to use them on something. And here's this shot from the comics, lifted right from the page. When Hulk and Thor are sitting around in Hulk's apartment, you'll notice Hulk is wearing these huge beads around his neck, which is taken directly out of the Ultimate Wolverine vs. Hulk comics, when Wolverine is sent to track down Hulk in the Tibetan mountains. The best comic book movies are the ones that take stuff from the original source material and mix it into an original idea. And Thor Ragnarok succeeds in every way. It's a phenomenal movie that not only blows away the other two Thor movies, but it ranks as one of Marvel's greatest. It might even be my favorite Marvel movie yet. I can't really decide, because there's a lot of them that I really, really liked. Winter Soldier, I loved Ant-Man, but this movie, there's just something about it that I'm dying to go watch it again. So, yeah, it may be my favorite one. But with Infinity War and Justice League right around the corner, it's an awesome time to be a nerd. Go watch this movie and leave me your thoughts down below, whether you agree or disagree with me. I always love to hear outside opinions. If you enjoyed this review, leave me a like, and don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Twitter. This is Fabian. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.